Picture this. A CTO sits in a strategy meeting. She has been listening for 40 minutes. She has assessed every argument. She knows which option carries the least risk. She knows why. She has weighed the organizational implications of each choice. She also knows the room is anxious and wants resolution. She says, I think we should go with the second option. The room hears a conclusion. What the room did not see was 40 minutes of careful analysis, empathy for the team's anxiety, and a risk calculation that weighed 3 competing factors. Everything that made her answer good was invisible to the people who needed to see it. Let that scenario sit for a moment before I name the pattern. Her direct reports told her coach she seemed checked out in meetings. She told her coach she was deeply engaged. Both were telling the truth. The gap was in how much of her processing ever became visible to the room. She is not disengaged. She is not confused. She is not uncertain. She is doing sophisticated analytical work entirely inside her head, and none of it is reaching the surface. The room sees stillness and silence. She is running a complex calculation that would impress every person at that table if they could see it happening. This is the most common pattern in coaching practice. The leader who processes deeply but displays little. Gino's EQ emotional expression scores confirm the dynamic, high internal awareness, minimal external visibility. Their team experiences detachment where the leader experiences deep engagement. In Module 1, you met the invisible thinker, the leader who reaches strong conclusions and announces them without narrating the path. That archetype is the expression gap in action. Now we are going deeper into the mechanics, why this gap forms, how it shows up in assessment data, and why the standard interventions get it wrong. Think about your last 3 meetings. Did anyone know what you were thinking before you announced your conclusion? Not your conclusion, your thinking. The analysis that led to it. If people regularly experience your decisions without seeing your reasoning, that is the expression gap in action. And here's the finding that should shift how you think about this. The leaders who score highest on emotional intelligence assessments often have the widest expression gaps, not the narrowest. The widest. More internal awareness without corresponding external display creates a larger perception disconnect, not a smaller one. Why? Because thorough internal processing produces careful, well-considered responses. That is a real strength. But that same processing also produces an external appearance of hesitation or disengagement. The room sees someone sitting quietly, apparently uninvolved. The leader is actually running a complex analysis that accounts for factors nobody else in the room has considered. The analytical quality that made them successful in earlier roles now creates a gap in positions where the audience needs to see the thinking happen, not just receive the conclusion after the fact. When Gino's data shows high self-awareness paired with minimal emotional expression, a leader scoring at the 90th percentile for awareness and the 40th percentile for expression, the pattern is confirmed. The leader knows what they think and feel. The room does not. A VP of engineering I worked with completed the Gino's assessment. Her direct reports described her as hard to read and detached. She described herself as deeply engaged. The assessment data confirmed what neither self-report could capture on its own. The awareness was there. The display was not. The diagnosis is in the gap between those 2 scores. In plain language, the gap between processing and visibility, not a confidence problem, not a communication skills problem, a visibility problem. The distinction matters because the intervention is completely different. Prescribing confidence coaching for a visibility problem wastes months. The confidence is already there. Communication training does not address visibility either, because the leader can communicate just fine when they choose to. The work is making the internal external, not building something that is already there, but making what is there available to the people who need to see it. Knowing this is an expression gap changes the entire development approach. The exercises come in Module 4. Here in Module 2, the goal is diagnostic precision. Can you see the pattern in your own experience? Can you name the gap between what you are processing internally and what others can actually observe when they look at you in a meeting? If you can name it, if you can point to the specific disconnect between your internal engagement and your external display, you already have more diagnostic clarity than most leaders get from a full year of generic presence coaching, because most coaching never identifies which gap it is working on. It just applies the same intervention to every leader regardless of the pattern. You can now see the expression gap pattern and the mechanics behind it. The question is, how do you spot it in your own data? Your 360 results, your Geno scores, your feedback language, that is what the assessment evidence looks like and how to read it. That is what we are covering next.